Hi everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project. It's been a while. My special guest it's tonight for me, but I think it's morning for her,
Yeah.
is Mia Danielle Williams, who's Miss Intercontinental Wales. Mia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
Now, how are things going in Wales? As I said, it's been a while since I've done an interview. We're just going into spring here in Australia, starting to warm up, some really nice, mid 20s, high 20s. What's the weather like for you in sunny old Wales?
So it's going into the fall now. We didn't really have much of a summer because of the rain, so I wouldn't really class it as sunny. But yeah, so we're going into the fall now, and then December months, which will be nice and cushy, cozy.
Cwtchi. Do you want to explain to the people who are watching who are not from Wales what cwtch means? I remember what it
Yeah.
means, but I don't know if everyone will know what it means.
Okay, so a cutch is like cozy, cuddly. It's just like a Welsh way of saying like, can I have a hug? So can I have a cutch?
Yeah, yeah, that was it. The way it was described to me. It was like Welsh for a hug. I was watching some of your lives. I saw you. I can't remember who you were talking to, but you were complaining about how hot it was, and you were in your car apparently having to go all over the place, and you had your air conditioning on. I mean, when you say it's hot in Wales, how hot is hot?
20 degrees.
Okay, you best not come down to Australia, then you might
Yeah.
just spontaneously combust. Now, Mia, take me back, take us back to when you were crowned. So I have no idea how far back you were crowned. I read that you're heading over to Egypt, I believe, in a couple of months, but to compete internationally. But take us back to when you won your national title.
So I won my national title in May. So it's been about 4 months now, which is really getting on. It literally doesn't feel like 4 months at all. It feels like 2 weeks ago I was crowned. Because time flies when you're having fun. But yeah, so I was crowned in May in the Radlett Centre up in Boreham Wood, which was, a lovely, lovely venue. And I was crowned alongside my two sister queens, Libby, who is Miss Intercontinental Scotland, and Danny, who is Miss Intercontinental England. So it was really, really nice that we were all sort of, crowned together because it sort of bonded us as well, going through, the
Mm.
whole weekend together, spending time even after rehearsals and things. We would sort of go back into each other's rooms and just have a chill, have a catch up. So it was really lovely that we were able to sort of bond then, so that Team UK, as it is, has sort of a strong bond going into Miss Intercontinental, and we know that we've sort of got each other as well, which is good.
Was this your first time competing in a pageant?
No, so I competed in Miss Wales last year. But I was 16 going into that, so I had no idea at all what it entailed. Obviously, I wasn't expecting the hard work. I just thought, oh, I'm going to go on stage and wear a pretty dress. I had absolutely no idea what was to come. But the whole weekend itself was like a set in stone for me, being involved with all the girls, the empowerment of the weekend, and just the general feeling really sort of inspired me to go further in my pageant career. My whole thing is mental health as well. Obviously, around that time, we had just come out of COVID.
Yeah.
So, as a 16-year-old, coming out of COVID, it was quite hard for me. And I knew then that this could be a platform for me to speak openly about mental health, especially, in young people, and the support that we didn't really get during COVID. So that's when sort of mental health with me are expanded as well, going into Miss Intercontinental, which, has been great for me.
What was it like going through COVID for yourself? I spoke to a few girls. I remember interviewing one girl over here in Australia, and I think she's around about your age now. I think she finished high school last year. I think she's 19 now. But she was a performing arts student, so a lot of dancing. And obviously, during COVID, if it's anything similar to what we had here in Australia, you couldn't go out anywhere, you couldn't do anything, and certainly you couldn't go into a dance studio because of social distancing. So I know that she really struggled with her mental health during the final years of high school, and I think it was quite unfortunate as well because she missed out, I think, on a lot of things that you think you're going to have But you almost look forward to it, right? You're going through high school. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But you're kind of looking forward to the end, having a party, having a celebration. And then COVID happens and you can't see your friends, you can't see your mates, you can't have celebrations. But what were the final years of high school like for yourself?
So, I like the lady you interviewed. I was very much into, performing arts and drama, singing, dancing. I loved all of that. And we'd have school productions, which since I was young, I've always been a part of. It's been something that, kept me going. I loved it. So when they sort of stopped as well, because it was just about the time where they'd given out sort of the lead roles. So you were learning the
Oh,
scripts, you were preparing, and
yeah.
then it was, right, you're not doing this anymore. So the months and months of hard work you'd spent, not only being in school preparing for exams, but out of time as well, learning this, learning the dance routines, getting excited about the show. It was told you're not doing it anymore. And especially when, you've got a bigger role as well, you've got more to learn, you've got more responsibility on
Mm,
you, so you're more excited for it. So that was really hard. And sort of for me, the only thing that kept me going was, okay, well, I can do the one next year and I can do the one next year. But I never did another one because it sort of spanned out then during COVID. The last year of school for me, it was like, right, okay, we've got the go ahead, we can do the show. So we were doing sort of a collection of the shows of over the years that had been done. It was really, really exciting. I was cast as Belle from Beauty as the Beast, and that was amazing for me because I've loved Belle since I was a little girl.
yeah.
Um, so it was really, really exciting for me. And then it was told, right, we don't know if we can do the show anymore because we're sort of uncertain whether or not we're going to go back into another lockdown, which was like, oh my gosh, like I've waited so long for this, and we're going to go back into another lockdown. And we did end up going back into another lockdown then, so I wasn't able to do that either. So it was just like,
Right.
when am I sort of going to have my time then to do something I enjoy? And I think as well, obviously, we were in and out of lockdowns. I don't know what it was like over in Australia, but we were in a lockdown. Then we'd be given like 2 weeks of freedom or like a fire breaker, whatever it was called. Um, where you could, go see your friends for 2 weeks, but then you have to go back inside. So it was like
Yeah.
false hope, and it was so, uncertain. And being young, and sort of asking your parents, well, what's going on? What are we doing? And then being like, I don't know. There was no sort of certainty, no sort of path forward. It was like, when is this going to end? So I think that's what, sort of really took a toll on me. And then going back out into, general life, then socializing with
Mm,
everyone, that's when it was a bit like, oh well, I've been in my house for 2 years, like on my own with my family, and now I have to socialize with
yeah.
everyone, sort of like, what is going on? So that's when, I started feeling like anxious, like, what, I don't know what I'm going to do, going back into a normal learning schedule with teachers going into classes every day. It was very like full on, very scary.
So was that when your issues with mental health started and when you first got interested in mental health?
Yeah, so I realized then that I did have anxiety, but it was very hard to find that out. It was more so, what is wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? My friends aren't feeling this way. Is it something wrong
Mm,
with me? It was more so the uncertainty and the winding myself up was, what is actually wrong with me? Which is when, you become more anxious then because you can't work out what the issue is.
yeah.
So that is when sort of my issues started. And when I was then, sort of, right, okay, you do have anxiety, that's for me when I thought, right, I've just been through this manic sort of spree for 2.5 years, not knowing what's wrong with me. I don't want people to go through that feeling, what is actually wrong with me, putting themselves down because they don't know what's wrong with them. That's when I thought, I'm not gonna, let someone else feel like this and have people feel uncertain and there be no support for them. So that's when I sort of wanted to be, like that older role model that could step in and talk you through it essentially.
What was your journey like in terms of dealing with your anxiety? Because again, I was watching some of your lives, and I know one of the things you've done is you've interviewed people. I think it was in Kenya, about mental health, and I think it's fascinating how different countries. Maybe fascinating is not the right word because I do think some countries deal with it better than others.
Yeah.
But what was your journey like in, I guess, first learning that you had anxiety? And I think it's interesting when you have anxiety but you don't know what it is, then you get anxious about actually having anxiety because you don't know. But what was your own mental health journey like?
So it was really scary. Obviously, I'd spoken to my mum about it at the time, and she was more than supportive. She was like, "Right, okay, we know I don't really know what to do, but we'll go to the doctors, and maybe you can go into cognitive behavioral therapy, which
Mhm.
is just sort of like talking through your emotions, talking what you're feeling to find out the root." So I thought, yeah, okay, absolutely fine. But the word therapy sort of has a stigma around it anyway. So I was like, I'm like, what, 16? I don't need that. Like, I'm not. That's not something I need.
Yeah.
And she was trying to explain to me, like, look, it's not scary. It is just, talking to someone different that knows about your feelings. So I thought, right, okay, we'll give it a go. So we went to the doctors and I explained to her how I was feeling. It was sort of overlooked. It was, yeah, okay, that's, we can do something with that. We'll put you on a waiting list. And I'm thinking, fab, I'm finally going to get help. Someone's going to listen to me, someone's going to know what to do, but it's going to be about 2 years long, this waiting list. And in my head, I'm like,
2
I might have,
years?
yeah, I'm like, I might not have this for 2 years because obviously I don't know how anxiety works at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be better in 2 years. I only need like a month course and I'll be fine. But no, that's not what happened at all. So I'm on this waiting list for 2 years. And since then, it's been, well, coming up to 4 years. And I've never been contacted, never had sort of any catch ups or, are you still wanting to be on the list or you've moved further down the list? Nothing like that whatsoever.
Okay, so
So
well, I've got to ask, is that the way it's supposed to work? 2 years. So you said a 2 year waiting list, but 4 years later on, you still haven't heard back. Is that how it's supposed to work?
Well, it's not how it's supposed to work, but it's how it works. So obviously the system is designed to, oh, you'll be on like a 2 month waiting list, blah 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 blah. But obviously, COVID backlash then
Oh,
um
okay.
has sort of pushed the numbers back. But from what I heard, it was the same before COVID as well. So
Yeah.
I'm not too, I don't know if that's excuses or, but it is due to a massive lack of funding in the NHS. Because I don't know if you know what the NHS is.
Yeah.
But obviously we've got free healthcare in the UK. So, lack of funding going into that, which is mental health services are then put on hold essentially. They're
Mm,
not, it's physical injuries before mental health sort of crises and, care, which, is not good.
no.
um, we do have, certain systems that are again designed for, younger people going through mental health, but again, I've heard they're just as bad in sense of waiting lists and the advice that you're given. I haven't got personal experience with that, so I can't really speak. But from what, interviews that I've done and what people have said, it's sort of a collaborative, you know,
Mm,
it's not good. But yeah, so obviously the 2 year waiting list, 4 years later, still heard nothing. So about after the, 2 years, I thought, right, okay, nothing is gonna get done. I'm sort of in control of my own mind. It's gonna have to be something that I do and something that I put in place to sort of get rid of the anxiety or, learn to deal with it.
yeah.
So that's when I sort of went on a rabbit hole of, okay, how can you sort of shift your mindset? From being, a young child, my mum always went on about having a positive mindset and a positive attitude. And she, influenced me in that as soon as I was, I think, 5, as soon as I can remember. She was all about like
Yeah.
going to school so you're gonna have the best day ever. And, I would have the best day ever. So I think sort of learning to get back into that mindset, which is really, really, really hard when you're in a rut,
Mm,
was essential for me. So I'd look at, breathing exercises, meditation. I tried absolutely everything. Some things that people were saying really worked for them didn't work for me at all. So in
yeah.
terms of, that it is finding what is best for you. So I think the thing that really works for me is, that positive mindset and completely shifting your mindset. And I did that through several different things, mood boards I'd create, little Pinterest boards, this is what I want my life to be like, be grateful. At the end of every day, I'd write 5 things that I was grateful for. So I could reflect, maybe I didn't have the best day today, but this happened and that was good, and this happened and that was good. And I'd also set up my goals for the day, the next day as well, which really helped me, sort of in like a list order, that I could use as like a guideline as well. And once I'd done them, I ticked them off, like, oh my God, that was great. I managed to get through that
Mm,
today. which that also really helped me as well. So my best advice is, find something that works for you. Not everything is going to work for you. Things are going to work better, and it's a massive journey that you've got to go on to try and even find what works for you and what doesn't work for you. But once you found it, you can stick to that, and hopefully it helps you.
Were there any particular resources when you went on this journey by yourself, because you had to because of the waiting list? Were there any particular resources that you found super useful? I mean, are we talking like a Google search, YouTube?
To be completely honest, obviously going through lockdown, we became quite reliant on social media.
Hmm.
So TikTok was a really big thing. So for me, it was okay, I'll do a TikTok search and I'll see, what comes up in regards to positive mindset and, what can you do if you're coping with anxiety? Because that was, my sort of go-to resource. And that was really, really helpful. But obviously, as you get with social media and the internet, there is a lot of, false sort
Yeah.
of information spread out there as well. So it was sort of pinpointing, okay, well, this isn't real and this isn't real. And this does actually help because obviously they try and sell you a lot of things now on TikTok, more so now
Yeah.
than ever. So it was just trying to be aware as well. But the resources that I did find of well known creators and creators that I'd look up to as well, that's what really, really helped me, I think, and influenced me.
And how would you say your mental health is now after you've been on your search? I mean, so you're still on this waiting list. Sounds like you're going to be on that waiting list for the rest of your life. I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm not
sure.
counting on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with that. But I asked this because I've worked quite a lot in mental health. And I know from working with people with severe depression, anxiety, suicidality, that very often it's not a case of now I'm cured, now I'm better. It's much more a case of now I know better how to deal with it. Like they often say they have a toolkit. So when you have a bad day or an off day or you're feeling low, they know now more what to do versus like what you said before. You're anxious, but you don't know what it is. And so that makes you feel even worse. So would you say that now you're better, or would you say more so that now you know how to manage it?
I'd say it's a sense of both. I'd say, because I know how to manage it, I've given myself that sort of peace of mind that, okay, I'm not anxious all the time now. Whereas before I'd be anxious all the time every day. But because I know how to deal with it and being in a routine for me, so I'll have my little routine before bed that I do, knowing that I'm going to get to do that every night, that gives me peace of mind. And it's something so, so small, but knowing that I've got that routine, that's what gives me that peace of mind. Like, okay,
Hmm.
maybe I feel anxious right now, but later I'm going to go to bed the exact same how I did last night. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to, interrupt that. That's what gives me that sort of peace of
Yep.
mind. So, again, like you said, it isn't, I'm better now and I'm not anxious anymore, because I do get moments where, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a panic attack, or, this has really made me anxious and I don't feel sort of
Mm.
comfortable in the situation. It's okay, but what is going to make you, not feel as anxious? How do we get ourselves out of this situation, which I've learned to do now? And as much as I say breathing exercises didn't work for me, obviously, if you're feeling panicky, taking deep breaths is really, really good. Going to people you trust as well, like my nan has been a really big sort of role model for me. If I ever feel, I'm in a situation away from home or something and I'm feeling anxious, I'll give her a call and she'll, talk me through, you've been here before, you're safe, you know
Mm.
exactly what to do. That reassurance as well is really, really helpful. So, like you said, it is just sort of learning to deal with it, which gives me a better peace of mind then as well.
Do you think your generation has learned better than previous generations how to deal with mental health, or at the very least that the stigma is decreasing? And I ask this because it can be very different in different countries. I feel from having spoken before to different women that Australia is actually not doing too badly. I think obviously there's always a bit of stigma, like when you said you 16 and you got to go into therapy. It's kind of like, oh my God, am I a crazy person, or am I broken? I'm only 16 and I have to go to therapy. That doesn't sound right. And I think in Australia, I feel anyway, as someone who's struggled with his own mental health, that we have come a long way. I get the feeling the UK probably is lagging a little bit behind, but I just wanted to ask you from your personal experience, your friends, the people you went to school with, How in general would you categorize their mental health and stigma and dealing with mental health issues?
I think it's hard in regards to, noticing mental health issues and sort of pointing them out. I think we're a lot better.
Hmm.
But I also think that in regards to technology and how social media works, is a lot of self-diagnosing as well, where
Yeah.
people are thinking, oh my God, I have that symptom and I have that symptom. Maybe I'm depressed or maybe I suffer with bipolar disorder. I think, yeah, we're really, really good at, we're getting a lot better at making it more normalized and speaking out about it, which is incredible. It's amazing. And we do have a lot more resources out there for people that are suffering with mental health now, which again, amazing. But I think how big social media is, and when you see those posts on Instagram or TikTok, and it's like 5 signs that you have anxiety or 5 signs that you have
Mhm.
depression, people are looking at it and they're like, oh, sometimes I feel sad, or sometimes I'm going to stay in bed all day and don't want to move. Maybe I'm depressed. And then that gets into their heads and they're like, oh my goodness, maybe I have depression. And they wind themselves up to the point where, you know, they don't know what to do. Then they don't know, sort of in a situation
Yeah.
where I was, they don't know what's wrong with them because they've seen all this information when really, they might be a little bit anxious in certain situations, or they might feel sad in certain situations, and this sort of false information is making their brain work overtime to try and think, what mental health issue do I have? Do I have a mental health issue? It's more sort of glorified and dramatized as well, a lot more
Yeah.
nowadays, I would say, especially in the younger generation, because you've got people that so carelessly post about and I'll go on about it forever. Those little signs that you have depression, I absolutely hate them because they get in people's heads, and people probably put them out there with good intentions, but they can get into people's heads and make them overthink, and it's really not good to self-diagnose at all. So I think, yeah, in terms of funding and from my continental interviews that I do as well, talking to
Mm.
people from across the country generally, people have got a lot better at the systems. Obviously, in some countries still it's, sort of looked upon or frowned upon, which
Yeah.
obviously it's not good at all. Like the lady I was speaking to from Kenya, she said in her current area, obviously they have, some schools have officers that are well being trained and mental health trained, but in other schools they don't talk about it. You don't speak about mental health. So I think in some areas and across the country, social media has had a really positive impact, but it's also had a really
Mm.
negative impact as well.
I think it's interesting you bring up social media for a couple of reasons. First one is I play tennis once a week with my best friend, and I was just speaking to him today. He has children. And in one of the states in Australia, they are thinking about bringing in a blanket ban for all people under the age of 14 on social media, not just at school, but anyone under the age of 14. They're thinking you can't have social media. And I want to get your opinion on social media and whether you think it's good or bad. I understand it's a much more complicated issue than that. But the other thing I also want to mention is when you say those lists, 5 signs you have anxiety, 5 signs you have depression, and that it's really interesting because I interviewed a former Miss Universe Ireland, and she works in mental health in Northern Ireland, and she said exactly the same thing you did. Is that there are a lot of well-intentioned people out there. Maybe not. Maybe sometimes they just know this will get views, so you never know. But she's trained, right? She's done psychology in university, and she's very hesitant to put anything that could be considered as mental health advice out there, precisely because everyone's different. And it's funny you mentioned those lists because when I was getting diagnosed for ADHD, obviously the way these algorithms work is suddenly your entire feed is ADHD. And it really aggravated me because
Yeah.
every post I saw was signs you didn't know about that you have ADHD. And you look at it and you go, and I could kind of understand why people would not take it seriously anymore because these people are just putting, frankly, anything and saying this is a sign you have ADHD. Like apparently, if you walk in a certain way with a certain like sway of your hips, that's a sign you have ADHD. And I'm just thinking, you guys are doing a real disservice to people who are genuinely struggling with the issues. Because I think what will happen is that nobody will take them seriously anymore because everyone's going to go, oh, I'm a little bit ADHD. oh yeah, you get anxious. Everyone gets anxious from time to time. Or everyone gets a little bit depressed and blue from time to time. Just go for a walk. And
Yeah.
having spoken, and it can be well intended advice, but having spoken to people who've been suicidal, that advice would have been very counterproductive because it turned out they were bipolar. So there's an actual chemical dysfunction in the brain. But I say all this, what's your opinion on the impact of social media on mental health? And I have to say, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it's been great for it, but I mean, I'll leave it up to you.
It's so hard because, as negative and, false misinformation and things that get put out on social media that are damaging to people, body image, mind,
Mm.
everything that gets put onto social media, one way or another, someone's not going to like it, someone's going to love it, and
Oh
someone's
yeah.
going to think, what am I looking at? Everyone is different. Every post that you put out, people are going to be like, what is this? Or I really love this. That's the same when you get with different creators. That's just how social media works. And as
Yeah.
negative of an impact social media can have, especially in my opinion, on, younger children and the younger generation, because they don't
Yeah.
know, they've got enough life experience to deal with it properly, it can be positive as well. That's why my main platform is on Instagram, which obviously is a social media, because I can reach more people.
Mm.
So as much as you've got, the negative people that, sometimes they're trying to do well, sometimes they are trying to be malicious and trying to hurt people, hurt people's images of themselves, it can be a positive thing, which is why I try to make my page as, positive and friendly as possible. And when I do post, sensitive subjects, obviously today is National Suicide Prevention Day, I will post sort of trigger warnings as well. Like, this is what
Mm.
you are about to see. Don't sort of scroll if this isn't something that's going to be good for your mental health, because nothing is worth watching or reading that is going to be damaging to your mental health, that's going to upset you. It's not worth it. So when I try to, make my posts, I try to target them towards, the younger generation and the younger audiences. But obviously, mental health is sort of a mature topic. Some of the things in regards to mental health, so it's so important that you're very careful with what you say. With the color schemes, I also again try to target in my younger audience, because I want
Okay.
them to feel like this is a safe space for them. you know the people that are talking on the lives, they've been through it, they've experienced it, they've got family members, children, brothers, sisters that have experienced it, and they know. We're here to give you advice. Obviously, it's not professional advice, but we're here to give you our own experiences, how we've dealt with it. Just
Mm.
someone that's there to speak to you. If you don't have, an older brother or an older sister or a trusted adult that you can go to, we're here to speak to you, we're here to help you through it. We've all been through it, we're all human. And just explain, you're not any different. Everyone is different, but our brains work so differently. And because
Mm.
our brains work so differently, you're not different, you're you. And
Yeah.
to stop, sort of feeling like, oh, I don't think the same as you, I'm so different, and that's a really bad thing. It's not. Everyone's different, and that's such a positive thing, because we wouldn't have people that excel at certain things if we weren't different. We wouldn't have, people that enjoy doing pageantry, people that are mental health support workers, people that are doctors, because everyone is so different. The world wouldn't go round if we, were all exactly the same, and we wouldn't have, close relationships with people if we weren't exactly the same. We wouldn't have learning experiences. That's what life is. Everyone's different, and I like to say that everyone's brain is a different color, because, my brain might be blue and your brain might be purple, but we're not the same. So I try to, break it into little analogies to make it easier to explain to people. So you've got accounts that can be really informative and really positive to, people and younger generations. That's why I go into schools across Wales to talk about it and to sort of normalize it as well, because
Mm.
it's so important. But then, like I said, you've got the negative people on social media. And again, it goes back to everyone is different. Everyone has different intentions. Nobody's going to be the same. You could have someone with a really bad intention, or you could have someone that's, just trying to post a picture, and, you know, they look a certain way, and people are like, oh my god, why don't I look like that, why don't I look like that? And that then affects their body image, but that's not that person's fault, they're just posting a picture. It's
Yeah.
such, a complicated world social media is, where, young children's body images are being affected, their mental health are being affected. And it goes back to, like, I agree in the sense of what age should people be allowed social media? Do you have enough life experience to be able to be like, oh, that girl looks really, really lovely in that picture, and not compare every little thing because that's the
Mm.
sort of mindset you're in? Or see one of those, 5 signs you're depressed videos and be like, oh, that's just, that's nonsense. That's not how it works. Instead of reading into it a lot.
I think a lot of it comes down to, I said this to my friend, I mentioned he has kids. I think a lot of it comes down to your parents. And you correct me, if you disagree, if you agree, whatever, but I think it's so important in this day and age that a young woman, a young man growing up and they're going through something has a good enough of a relationship with their parent to be able to speak about
Yeah.
some of these really tricky issues without feeling they're going to get extra judgment. So, if you're feeling depressed and you don't know what it is, like you didn't know what anxiety is. Let's say you go to your mum and saying, Mum, I feel some kind of way, I feel a bit funny. And she doesn't just brush it off. It's like, oh, you'll be fine. Just go for a walk, or you're just fussing about nothing. And I say this because I used to work at an all girls high school here in Australia as a tennis coach. And one of the things that always fascinated me was how some of the kids, how some of the girls would have really good relationships. Because I was looking at some of the girls going, this is an amazing student and this is a terrible student. And I was trying to work out, what causes some children to turn out one way and what causes some children to turn out the other. And I think a lot of it for me came down to the relationship the young child had with their parents. If they had an open, honest relationship with their parent, they could make it through just about anything. If that relationship didn't exist, and I'm not saying the parents are horrible in this day and age, especially some of them they both have to work, and so they don't have time in
Yeah.
many ways. They come back home, they're exhausted, and it's hard to have that relationship because it takes more effort. And in some ways it's easier just to give the tablet to the young person or the phone and say, here, watch YouTube and this. How important do you think the relationship that a young person growing up has with their parent is on their mental health?
I think it's massive. I won't lie to you. It can be quite a controversial topic as well because, a lot of people say you're not your parents, which is right. You're not your
Yeah.
parents, you're an individual person. But I think the relationship that you have growing up with your parents is huge
Mm.
because they are the people, you spend day dot with. As soon as you're born, you spend the rest of your life with your parents. And if you choose, that your parents aren't right for you and you want to cut them off or whatever, that's further down the line. But there's a reason behind that. So with me and my mum, we've always had a very positive and open relationship, and the same as my nan as well. We're like three peas in a pod. We will always have little chats. We're very open and honest with each other. And if I think I can't go to my mum about something, I'll go to my nan about something, and she'll be like, well, you're overthinking this so much in your head, just talk to your mum about it. And I'm like, okay, actually it wasn't a big idea. Like if I smashed a glass or something and I was like, oh no, she's gonna shout on me, I'll tell my nan about it. Like that, that sort of relationship. So I've always had a really, really positive and open relationship with my mum and my nan, and they've always sort of been role models for me as well. Obviously they are quite open. If they've had any struggles with anxiety or anything, they've been open, they've shared their experiences with me. And
Okay.
that has been so positive to me, growing up thinking I'm not crazy because other people that I know and that I love feel it as well. So that's been a massive for me. But I also know people that don't have positive relationships with their parents, and they tend to, sneak around behind their parents' backs.
Yeah.
And then when they tell me things, I'm like, but that is so dangerous. You don't know what you're getting into in
Mm.
that sense. And I'm like, I'm here to support you. Obviously, I'm not your parent, but I'm here to support you anything you need. You can only try to be, as best as you can. But when, people do have damaging relationships with their parents, I've seen it that it does cause mental health issues because they're like, I have nobody to speak to, who do I go about this? And because if they do speak to their parents about it, it's brushed off and it's like, right, okay, go for a
Yeah.
walk like you said, or take a bath, you're fine, go to sleep. But it's not going to go away in the morning. Like that
Mm.
feeling is always going to be there, whether they have support or they don't have support. So having, that parent influence and someone that you can rely on, someone that's supposed to be responsible for you, supposed to look after you, having that is so unbelievably important. And I'm lucky enough that I did have that growing up with my mum and my nan. And, they've always been a really big influence to me, and they've always been very positive to me, like I said about, positive thinking and positive mindset. My mum put that in me when I was young. And I'll always talk to her about it as well. Even sometimes I'll find myself in the kitchen and I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll be like, oh, I had such a horrible day today. And she's like, but what did you enjoy about today? And I'm like, what? Like, I just want to complain. And she's like, but what did you enjoy about today? Like, name a good point. And I'm like, okay, maybe I saw a really nice house in work. There we are. You did one thing you liked. Think about the positive. Think about what was in that house. So, having that sort of someone that can really win and be like, okay, you did have, not the best day, but that is what made it not the best, but then you had good things as well. That's always been really, really important to me. So I think parent influence is, massive in terms of mental health as well.
Yeah, I get what your mum does, and I think that's amazing. But also sometimes I think you just want to have a rant. Like I think everyone needs a friend or a parent
Yeah,
who would just sit there and maybe pretend to listen. They're not actually listening,
yeah,
but we all need a good rant from time to time, right? And we don't want to. We don't want people to tell us how good we've got it
yeah,
and all the things we should be grateful for. Sometimes we just need to. I mean, especially in
let it
pageant
out.
land, your dress doesn't fit, your shoes haven't turned up, your feet are bleeding, you're cranky, you're grumpy, people didn't turn up to your fundraiser. And it's like,
Yeah,
I don't want to hear all the stuff I should be grateful for. Let me just rant for a
me
few
to
minutes.
complain.
Yeah, yeah. And then, give me 5 minutes and then, and then I'll switch my mindset. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to ask because you got your mum, you got your nan, and so you got that intergenerational thing going on. How do they, let's say you have a bad day and you talk about social media or even you talk about pageantry. I'm just interested, given the mum and the nan and that generation gap, how do they see like social media and how do they see pageants?
So they're very open-minded. And like my mum and my nan, they're both on TikTok. They love it.
Oh,
They are very sort of young spirited as well. If I show them something, like at first, I remember my nan was on TikTok and we'd be sending each other TikToks all the time. And my mum would be like, I'm not getting on that. I'm 40. It's not happening. And then what do we know? Next day she's on TikTok. But they're all very, open to things. And obviously, pageantry has had in the past, negative connotations with it due to certain factors, but it also has some really positive aspects. And my mum will always say this every pageant we go to. She'll be like, oh, I always dreamed that, when I had you, that I'd have a really, really girly girl. And I'm like, well, now you do. Now you have a really girly girl that, you can buy dresses for and buy heels for. And I'm not complaining. Um, but yeah, so they are very open to it. And obviously, doing Miss Wales at 16 was quite scary for them because they didn't know what was in store. They didn't know what I had to do, and they were fully relying on me to sort of fill them in what is actually going to happen. And I didn't know myself. So that was quite scary. And I applied for Miss Wales, didn't tell absolutely anyone about it until we were in my great grandmother's house. And I said, oh my God, I've got an interview for Miss Wales. And she looked at me and she was like, what are you on about? I was like, oh, I applied and I didn't tell anyone. I just thought, I'd do it because I saw it and take the chance. And she was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, what are we going to do about this? So that's when we started going through to it. And my stepdad was there every step of the way as well. He was, okay, I don't understand, but I'm so supportive, and whatever you need, I'll help you. And he's still exactly the same. Any pageant we go to, he'll drive us there. And we've had times before, obviously, we get dressed up to go, me and my friend, and he's like, oh, girls, I really hope you win tonight. And we're looking at him like, what are you on about? Well, I hope you win. We're not competing, we're just watching the pageant. And then we'll come back into the car. He's like, "Did you win anything?" It's like, "No," but he's so supportive. But he's just there for the ride, and he doesn't understand, but he loves it. And so my mum took on this role of like a pageant mum. She loves it. And my nan, she calls herself my manager. They're very like involved and they love it. So they support me like whatever I do. And they're very, proud. My mum works as a healthcare in a hospital. She's always showing people. She's like, oh, look at my daughter, blah, 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 blah. But they're so proud. And they just, anything I'm involved in or anything I want to do, they encourage me 100%. My mum has even said before, if you wanted to work in a library because it made you happy, even if I think you can do something, even if I think you could be a vet or a lawyer or whatever, if you wanted
Yeah.
to do that because it made you happy, you go and do it. Do whatever makes you happy. So, pageantry makes me so happy, and they support me 100%. My mum gets involved with, all the girls, any fundraisers we have. She comes in, she's like, "Oh, what are you competing in? Let's go watch that." She loves it.
You said your mum said she always wanted a girly girl,
Yeah.
and you said now she does. Is that to say you weren't a girly girl before you entered pageants?
No, she meant like when I was born, she wanted a girly girl.
Okay.
Like she
I
was
was
hoping, she was like, "Oh, I want a girl that I can buy dresses for," and whatever. And she did always growing up, but getting into pageantry, obviously, I got more into doing hair and makeup. I've always, loved doing nails, hair and makeup, etc. But you're doing it sort of all the time when you're doing like fundraising events and things, and some of the girls that aren't as good at doing hair or need extra help, I'll do that. And I can do her hair and makeup as well, because she's basically got a makeup artist and a hairdresser at the click of her fingers. So I think that's what she meant.
So what's your favorite part of the whole hair and makeup situation, or what are you best at? What are you worst at?
It's hard because I try my best at everything. I try little things, even if I
Yeah.
don't think I can do it, I'll try them. I do love doing makeup. Obviously there's areas that I'm not perfect. You can improve all the time in doing makeup, you can improve all the time in doing anything. um but I do love doing makeup. I think hair is the bit where I'm a bit like, oh, like what am I doing? But I try my best, and I'm always really happy with the outcome. And my mum gets a free hairstylist, so she never complains. So yeah.
How long is your hair?
It's like, I don't know off the top of my head.
That's that's quite long. I mean, it's dangling off camera.
Yeah.
So tell me, I mean, obviously it sounds like you're balancing quite a lot. And when are you? So you're going to be competing in Egypt, is that correct? For
Yes.
Miss Intercontinental, and it's in 2 months.
Yeah.
So catch me up on how's that all going.
So it's going absolutely fine. I am getting really, really excited now. Obviously, when you've got a long, long list of things to do, you sort of dread it and you're like, how am I going to get all this done in time? But the past week, I've really sort of been knuckling down and thinking, right, let's pick some stuff off this list. And now I can get excited about it, which is, the best part, looking forward. And we're constantly, me, Danny, and Libby, England and Scotland, we're constantly, talking to each other, hyping each other up if one of them's had a bad day, or say a costume mishap, or their makeup came in the wrong shade or something like that. If anything happens or their shoes don't fit properly, we just lift each other up, and we're like, right, get so excited, girls, because we are like a little hype team for each other, and it's really, really good. And it's so empowering as well, going into a competition, which it's a big competition, it's a massive
Mm.
competition, it's prestigious, it's beautiful, and there's so many inspirational women from across the world that it can be quite daunting. But going into it with girls that will have your back no matter what, true best friends in and out of the competition, that's really empowering for, I think, all of us as well. And it does lift us up a little bit. But it is getting to the point now where it's time to get excited. Everything's sort of been ordered, going through things, preparations, they're all, in full swing, which is really, really exciting as well.
How many suitcases is Team UK going to be taking over?
Too many.
Give me an estimate. What are we
Many.
talking? 3 each, 5 each, 10 each?
Well, we're in the group chat every day, and when new clothes come in, it's like, right, okay, I might need to add another suitcase on. A suitcase might need to be added. So I can't give you an estimate because it's growing each day.
You know, you have to pay a lot for some. I don't know what airline you're flying with, but
Yeah,
sometimes to add another suitcase, it's almost as much as buying another seat.
expensive. Yeah, it's really expensive.
Well, good luck with that. I think everyone who's in pageant who's competed overseas has become a very good packer out of
Yeah.
necessity. You really need to know how to, those vacuum bags, suck out all the air and
Backpack everything.
yeah, crush everything in there without crushing it. What are you
Yeah.
most looking forward to in this competition?
So there's two things that I'm most looking forward to, and one is obviously meeting all of the delegates from around the world because it will be so exciting. A little bit of me is, like, oh my God, I get, to talk about sort of how they have been, brought up and how their country sort of sees mental health as well. That's just some part of my brain that I love to find out because it gives
Mm,
me the opportunity from around the world rather than, trying to scout people out to do interviews. Just having open conversations about it is something that I'm really, really excited about. That's just, a little part of my brain. But obviously, meeting all the contestants, seeing, what they're up to, what they're doing, their personalities. I think it's going to be really, really exciting. And meeting new people in general, I am a people person, so I think it'll just be so, so exciting to sort of scout everyone out, see, how they're doing, what they're like, their likes and their interests, and just building, sisterhoods and friendships, because we did it in Intercon in Great Britain, and I've come away
mhm.
with some really, really amazing and close friends. And even from Miss Wales, my best friend I met in that competition, she supports me every step of the way, and she doesn't do pageants anymore, but still she'll come and she'll support me. So just meeting, really close friends and having, relationships from across the world, I think is going to be
Mm.
absolutely insane. It's going to be incredible. And just, saying like, oh, my friend's from, I don't know, New Zealand, or my friend's from Spain. And then people being like, how do you know someone from over there? It's like, oh, just a pageant girl thing. But no, that is a really, really exciting aspect. And I absolutely cannot wait to meet all of the delegates, but also showing the other countries what Wales is
Mm.
and how powerful Wales can be, because often Wales is overlooked as a country. It's connected to England, and the amount of times I've gone abroad and been asked, "Where's Wales? Isn't that a part of England?" And it's like, no, we're our own country. I think it can be really, really overlooked because people don't sort of know what Wales is. They do think it's
Yeah.
just like an extra part of England. They don't know the culture. They don't know the heritage. A lot of them don't even know that we have our own language. But it's so exciting, and being able to share where I've been brought up, what my family feel is important, our culture, our holidays. It's so important to me. And I'll go back to Great Britain when we were competing. I remember being in a hotel with Danny and Karen, who was my runner up, and we were sat on the bed, and I was doing my little Duolingo, learning Welsh, and I was talking to them about Welsh, and I was
Yeah.
trying to get them to pronounce some Welsh words, and they were looking at me like I'm not saying that because they couldn't. They just, the tongues didn't roll right, or whatever. They could not say it. But to me, it's like it's so amazing just being able to sort of share the Welsh language. Um, I didn't go to a Welsh school, so you have sort of
Right.
designated Welsh speaking schools and English speaking schools. Um, and it does annoy me that I'm not fluent in Welsh, which is why, I'm on my Duolingo every single night trying to learn as much as possible, because half of my family are Welsh. They speak fluently in Welsh. We'll go up there, my grandmother's for Sunday dinner, and they're all speaking in Welsh, and I'm looking at them like, I don't know what's being said. But no, having that sort of, I think having our own language is just so important anyway. Like, it's so unique
Yeah.
to us. I love
Yeah.
it. So being able to even share like bits that I know is so important to me, and showing them that Wales is such a country full of heritage, full of culture, full of amazing things. Like, we have our own holidays, we have our own sort of like patron saints. We got confused then. Patron
We
saints.
got you.
Yeah, it's just, it's so important to me because that's where I've, been brought up. That's what my life has been situated around, the beautiful beaches we have, and just really showing that Wales is, a strong country. It's not just a part of
Part of
England.
England.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's something that very often when you go overseas, people think that not just Wales, but Scotland as
yeah,
well, and sometimes even Ireland are like, isn't that part of England? And I'm like, I don't
yeah,
know which country would take the most insult to being
yeah,
called just a part of England.
yeah,
And on the subject of Welsh, I mean, I know Gabriella Jukes and Emma Jenkins very well, and they've been
yeah,
on multiple times, and my understanding, it's at least with Gabrielle and I think with Emma as well, they speak fluent Welsh.
yeah,
But in terms of Duolingo, I mean, I've learned some Russian, which has a completely different alphabet. It's not A, B, C, D. The thing I have with the Welsh language is it's like by a vowel. It's like sometimes you will look
Yeah,
at a word and there's lots of L's, Y's, W's, C's,
yeah,
but there's no A, E, I, O, U. And sometimes the word is like, as long as a park bench. So
yeah.
how difficult has it been learning Welsh? I mean, I don't know how good you are naturally. Some people are very good at picking up languages, but specifically learning Welsh, how have you found that?
It has been really hard. So obviously we in English schools anyway across Wales, you have a Welsh lesson, so you do need to learn Welsh
Yeah.
in your time at school, and you do a GCSE in Welsh, which is like a certificate sort of
Yeah.
thing. It's a qualification. So I was lucky enough to have an A-star in Welsh. So I did
Okay.
have a good understanding of Welsh. I've always had quite a good understanding of Welsh. But it has been really, really hard, obviously comparing English and Welsh. They're completely different languages.
Yeah.
Whereas, English is actually a harder language, I think, in the sense of,
Yep.
a word says something, but it doesn't read what it's written, if that makes sense. Whereas
Yep.
some of the time in Welsh, it's you say it how it's seen, sort of thing. Obviously, in the Welsh alphabet, we don't have a K, so we have
I
a
did not know that.
yeah, so we have a which is a C and a H,
Right.
and like a V, which is a DD. So
Right.
we
Yep.
have sort of like double letters in the alphabet
Yes.
that make a sound, which again quite complicated. But I would say, my cousins go to Welsh schools; their first language is Welsh, and learning English is really, really hard for them. Then, so I think
Hmm.
it's like Welsh is definitely a lot easier to learn than English. But if you know English first, it's harder.
Yeah, I was just speaking about that with someone the other day. I think English is actually probably the hardest language to learn as a second language
Yeah,
because there are so many rules, but the rules have as many exceptions as there are rules.
yeah.
So I think it's probably best you learn English first, and then by comparison, any other language will be a lot easier. Whereabouts in Wales are you from? I spent a fair bit of time in Wales. I lived in Swansea for about a month or so, and Cardiff. I remember it's funny because Australia was colonized 200 and something years ago, right? So white Australia. And then I would go in Cardiff and go to a castle or sit down at a pub, and you'd see like the date that that pub was, you know, established, and that pub was older than Australia.
Yeah.
And as Australian coming from overseas, it's just something your mind doesn't work on. It. How on earth can this pub or this castle? I think it was castle. Was it castle Koch?
Yeah,
Coch. Yeah, and we don't have castles here in Australia. To let you know, we have a lot of things, but we don't have castles.
yeah.
But whereabouts in Wales are you from?
Swansea.
Swansea. Okay.
Yeah.
I spent a fair bit of time in Swansea. I think that's where Gabriella is from as well. Gabriella
Yeah,
G.
and then Emma's from Llanelli, which is like
That's
10
right.
minutes away. But it's funny because even though South Wales, you've got South Wales, like Emma now is obviously 10 minutes away from me. She's got a completely different accent to me.
Mm.
Because there's so many different Welsh accents and like variations of the Welsh accent. Like Cardiff and Swansea sound different. Llanelli and Swansea sound different. Like everyone just sounds different, but they all have a Welsh twang. It's really hard.
You should. I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but I've interviewed so many girls from the UK, and one of the things I always remark is every single one of you has a different accent.
Yeah.
It's not just different Welsh people have different Welsh accents. You
Yeah.
can talk to 10 girls from England, they all have wildly different accents. And sometimes you talk to people who live on the same street. They literally live on the same street and they have wildly different accents. And I
Yeah.
just still to this day, I don't quite understand how that happens. When you go to Egypt, do you think people will be able to understand the Welsh accent easily enough? Because I know some people make fun of the Scottish, obviously hard to understand Scottish, hard to understand Irish, whatever. Do you think people will struggle with the Welsh accent at all?
Well, I think because it's my accent, I'm quite arrogant to it, and I'm like, how will people not understand what I'm saying? But obviously, everyone's got a different accent, and everyone has the sort of same approach. And how are you not
Yeah,
going to understand what I'm saying? Um, but no, like I don't think it really clicked that some people can't actually understand me until I'll say like Intercon GB because I was there and I'd say something and they'd be like, what do you want about? Like lush is a really big thing for me. Like if I think someone is, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
really lovely. I'll go, oh my God, that's so lush. Or, oh, that, I don't know, that sandwich was really lush. And the girls were like, what are you on? What do you mean lush? Like that's a bath bomb company. And I'm like, no, it's just lush. Like it's lovely. And they've all sort of adapted that now. Like if I have a conversation with them, they'll be like, oh, you look lush today. So I
It's so
think, like the quirky little Welsh traits, hopefully they'll be picked up as well. No, but a lot of people have said, the Welsh accent, Welsh people speak very fast.
yes,
Which I don't think and I have a lot of
you
people
do.
be like, whoa, take a
You do.
breath. And it's like, I thought I was speaking slow. But no, I think, obviously there's going to be probably language barriers or people won't be able to understand what I'm saying in the sense of, because of my accent. But that's something that, people are going to learn to love. They're going to learn to love the Welsh accent and, the heritage in the country and hopefully pick up some of my quirky little traits like lush and cutch. So I hope to have all the girls by the end of Intercon saying, oh, come have a cutch or, oh, that's lush.
It's funny. I've forgotten how much. This is nothing against Wales or the Welsh, but I've forgotten how much the word lush triggers me.
Yeah.
I used to do a podcast with the UK girls, and for some reason, the word lush. When some people say they hate the word moist, I have no problem with
Yeah.
the word moist, but for some reason, the word lush just really. I don't know. I can't stand it. I don't know why. It just makes me feel a kind of way. The other one that the UK girls would always say was cheeky. That's the other one that I never could understand. Well, go for a cheeky Nando's. I'm like, what do you mean a cheeky? Anyway, it's interesting. I'm sure you're going to have a good time with the different accents over there. I mean, you said you do performing arts. Are you any good at doing different accents? Like, could you pretend to be English for a day or American for a day? How would that work out?
So I like to think that I'm really good at accents, but some people tell me I'm not. So when I was younger, I used to watch a YouTuber called Liza Koshy. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she used to take on like this Russian persona and used to do this Russian accent. So growing up, I would do this Russian accent. Now, it's not good. This Russian accent isn't good, but it's like my party trick that I pull out. And we've gone places with my parents before and they think it's absolutely hilarious. So when I was like 9, they'd have me like go to Joe's Ice Cream, which is, obviously you know what Joe's is.
Yeah.
Because you lived in Swansea, which is like an ice cream brand in Wales. But I'd go there and I'd speak in this Russian accent and people would be so thrown off because I've got 2 Welsh parents and I'm speaking in a Russian accent, which isn't any good, may I add. But yeah, I think I'm amazing at it. And I do try to, like, if I'm talking to someone, I'll go in and out of very bad accents, but I'll do it.
Well, I mean, you said you talked this up. I pretend you're ordering an ice cream from me and do it in your Russian accent. I need to hear this because I studied a bit of Russian, as I said. So, pretend you're talking to me. You're ordering an ice cream. Come on, let's hear this accent.
Right, I gotta get in the zone for it first. Okay. Hello. No, this isn't it. It's really, really bad. Okay, I'm sorry. Hang on. Wait. I need to think.
That sounded like a bad Scottish accent.
Yeah, that was bad. Right, hang on. I can't order an ice cream, but I can like.
Anything you want.
I will. Would you like to order an ice cream? Any guess?
Look, my accents are terrible, so I can't talk. I do think, though, will be dangerously stereotyping, but I do think it's very difficult to do a Russian accent when you're smiling. I think Russian accents are much easier to do when you are serious, like like this, because in Russia it's too cold and everything, so we have to be very serious. I don't think you can do Russian when you're. I've only just thought of this now. When you're doing, I think you're smiling too much. I don't know if you're smiling when you go into the ice cream shop. Probably you are, but that wasn't bad. Wasn't.
I think yours was better.
That's not saying much. If my accents are better than yours, then that's really not saying much. But I mean, have some fun with that. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a Miss Intercontinental Russia or anyone from that region, but
no idea.
you could try your accent on them and see if they go, oh, did you live in Russia too? See how you go. Now, Mia, just before we get to the final 10 questions, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for supporting you on your journey?
Definitely, like I said, and I've given a shout out to many times, my mum, my nan, and my stepdad, and also my really, really good friend Phoebe, who will be coming to Egypt to support me as well.
Hmm.
She did do Miss Wales with me, and she no longer does pageants, but she's always there every single step of the way. And she's like my little hype woman. I love it. And then obviously my sister queens, Danny and Libby.
Will you be able to steal some of Phoebe's suitcases to take over your stuff?
I don't think she knows that, but yes.
I know how this works. One of the best thing about having friends and family go to international pageants is you get to steal their luggage. Anyway, all right, Mia, let's get to the final 10. It's been a while since I've done this, so let's see if I can remember them. And number one, what is your favorite word?
Coach.
You know what? That's the second time I've been given that answer. So there you go. Okay, so number two, what is your least favorite word?
That's hard. Right, it's going to sound really, really weird, but holes.
As in, like, holes in your clothes? Holes?
As in like holes, because there's a thing called trypophobia. I don't know if you've ever heard of it,
Oh,
but it's the
yes.
fear of like holes, and I've got that, so I don't like that word.
So did you have the iPhone that set that off? Apparently, there was an iPhone. The cameras set off everyone who had that phobia because the cameras looked like holes.
No, I didn't have that, but it's like, like honeycombs.
Yeah,
Can't look at
yeah.
them. I don't like them. I can't look at them. It scares
Okay.
me.
So you have that phobia. Is that the only
Yeah.
phobia you have? Or are there other?
That's the only phobia I have, but I also don't like spiders, but that's it. But
I
I
don't
wouldn't
think
say
many
don't
people.
like spiders is a phobia.
Yeah, I don't think many people like spiders, and I say this as an Australian, but yeah. Okay, number three in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
My family and my friends definitely get me excited, planning things ahead with them. Definitely like, planning things ahead, especially with, the people that you love, I think is really, really important because it gives you something to look forward to.
Okay, so that's what turns you on. What about what turns you off?
That's a hard question. I think definitely going into something which you expect it to be something. So like you've got obviously you shouldn't have expectations, but if you have an expectations of something, or an event or something that you've been promised, and it doesn't end up happening, for example, say that, oh, we'll go out for dinner on Friday, you wait all week for Friday, and it's like, oh no, I can't be bothered. that
Yeah,
that it's just disappointment.
yeah. Number five, what sound do you love?
I like a kitten meowing. Like a
Do you
little
have
kitten.
one?
Cute. I have a cat, yeah, but she's not a kitten anymore.
So you want to get a new kitten just so you can
Yeah,
hear the
but
sounds?
I've got 3 dogs and a cat, but I do want a new kitten, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Sounds like you've got a little farm going on over
Yeah.
there. Number six, what sound do you hate?
That's hard. Um, I don't know. Probably like the wind. Like when it goes, when it's like really like bashing against sort of the window and things. I don't like that. It's quite scary.
I do remember Swansea as being quite windy sometimes. Maybe that's just where I was, but yes, I do remember that. Number seven, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Time travel, because I would love to go back in time to like I'd probably go through all throughout time, to be honest with you, just to experience it and live that through myself. Obviously, I know sometimes in history were really, really bad, but pick the more
Hmm,
positive times and go through it and just sort of experience, like how my grandparents live. Like I think it would be really cool to see them growing up. I know that's really, really weird, but I just think, sort of to see like what their life was like would be quite nice.
sounds like you want to be a Doctor Who. Number eight, what job would you like to attempt?
Well, I'm currently an estate agent, but I think it would be really, really fun to be an archaeologist. It's always, I know they're very, very different, but it's always, been something that I thought that would be quite fun just to, like go on excavations and find things from history. I thought that would be quite cool.
Egypt would be a fascinating country for you then. I
Yeah,
mean, for obvious reasons. I mean, if you ever want to pick up archaeology, I would imagine Egypt has to be very high on the list.
definitely.
What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
I would definitely not like to attempt to be, I think, like, to be completely honest, I would hate to be what my mum does. She's a healthcare in a hospital, but I can't deal with sort of, like blood and gore, and that's her day to day sort of job basis. Like needles, I don't like, so I don't think that would be very good for me.
That's fair enough. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I think just well done, to be honest. Like, well done for, doing everything that you did do in your lifetime, just having that sort of, it would give you a reassurance that, you lived your life to the full and you lived your life, as well as you could. I think that would sort of give you peace in itself.
Beautiful. Well, Mia, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck in Egypt, and thank you for your beautiful Russian accent.
Amazing. Thank you. You're welcome.
I'll keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang up with the audience, but thanks everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.